Hello, my name is Hasan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast shorts. There's no co-host on these shorts episodes. These are now around 2 to 4 minute, sometimes as long as 6 to 10 minute observations, ideas, thoughts, or rants about the literature, philosophy, psychology, and even the theology of leadership. Because listening to me talk about leadership for now around 2 to 4 minutes is still better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. Even that business book your coworker won't stop raving about because it quote-unquote changed their life, but you can't see any difference in their leadership behavior. So how good could that author be?
Apparently, not enough men are reading quote-unquote literary books. The New York Times is lamenting this trend, as well as various writers on Substack. The Old Gray Lady has also noted, with hyperventilating clarity, that there is a notable decline of male writers, specifically white male writers with a notably Christian worldview, writing novels for both men and women. I have hesitated to comment on this trend that is being commented on in places like #BookTalk and other social media platforms that are flocked to by women for a number of reasons, with the biggest one being the fact that, well, men are listening to this literary leadership show. Sure, we cover books written by women, and we have covered and will continue to cover female authors. However, if you look at our statistics, 75% of the books that we cover, talk about, and relate to leadership or have been or are being written by men. But we very rarely cover contemporary novels written by men or women. As a matter of fact, the majority of the male writers we discuss on this podcast haven't been around in a temporal form and actively writing and submitting manuscripts for rejection to publishing houses and agents in New York City for at a minimum the last 50 or so years. I think Charles Portis, who died in February of 2020, is the most recent author whose works we covered on this podcast this year, and his novel of female empowerment and agency, True Grit, which was written in 1962. Back to the core point, though. Not enough men are reading quote-unquote literary novels. That's the lament. According to various writers, from GQ to Substack, the real worry, though, isn't adult men not reading novels right now. The real concern is, quote, the next generations of boys and young men who will grow up without fiction, who will learn about the world through message boards, unverified Wikipedia sources, and YouTube videos of dudes with muscles on muscles explaining why Joaquin Phoenix's Joker had the right mindset to advance in a competitive world, close quote. To wit, I respond to this critique. You got the world you wanted to create, and now you can hardly stand the consequences of your creation. Reading novels, literary or otherwise, will inform a reader of a lot of things that he or she probably wouldn't learn otherwise, from empathy and leadership all the way to the impact of decisions on people not yet born. And you know who is best at thinking, writing, and articulating about the multivariant outcomes of life? I hate to say it, because all of you are nice people who are listening to this podcast, and I hate to give nice people bad news, but the people who are best at thinking, writing, and articulating about such outcomes happen to be, well, men. Men traditionally have been the people who have shouldered the long-term consequences of bad decisions, a lack of empathy, and rebellion against order. By both men and women, by the way. Men have also tended, traditionally, to shield women and children from the effects of such consequences to the best of their abilities. It's almost as if this is built into the fabric of reality itself. But don't believe me. Let me quote from another book written, well, by men. And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it, Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return to the ground. For out of it wast thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Genesis 3:17-20. One of the tendencies that we have in our postmodern West is that both men and women seem to have forgotten that the natural arc of reality does not bend towards justice, but instead bends towards human rebellion. Rebellion against the natural order by leveraging technology. Rebellion against the psychological order by leveraging advancements in culture. And rebellion against the spiritual order and leveraging the temptation to remake the world in the image, not of our highest ambitions, but instead of our basest appetites. Men won't read novels that don't reflect the obvious reality of the order that they socially, culturally, morally, and financially face every day in ways both large and small. And if there are other technological tools that better allow the reflection to be made, for example, message boards, unverified Wikipedia sources, and YouTube videos of dudes with muscles on muscles, then those men will flock inevitably toward those modes of reflection. In short, if we want men to read more quote-unquote literary books, space must be made in the literary culture for the reality of men's lives, desires, aspirations, dreams, and even consequences to come forth. Otherwise, the patriarchy we are going to live under, and we will live under a patriarchy, will be weak, feckless, lacking empathy, bored to the point of engaging in damaging shenanigans, and unable and unwilling to do the hard work of protecting women and children and performing the default, thankless work of building and maintaining a society and culture long into the future. And well, that's it for me.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast today. And now that you've made it this far, you should subscribe to the audio version of this show on all the major podcast players, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, and everywhere else where podcasts are available. There's also a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the Leadership Toolbox channel on YouTube. Just search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button there on YouTube. And while you're doing that, leave a 5-star review if you like what we're doing here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just go below the player and hit 5 stars. We need those reviews to grow, and it's the easiest way to help grow this show. And tell all your friends, of course, in leadership. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing here, well, you can always listen to another leadership show. There are several other good ones out there. At least that's what I've heard. All right. Well, that's it for me.